Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Wayland. So I asked my granddad for that Roger Rabbit DVD.
Oh, did you?
In the hopes that maybe he would just say like, yeah, of course. Because I love my granddad, and he, I'm going to be honest, hasn't watched it in probably years.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, you can't have it. You can borrow it.
He knows what he's got. Respect.
And so I was telling Mom about it, and she was like, can't you just stream this? I was like, yeah, you can, but I want it for the collection. And so like I took it out for her to see, and she was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
this DVD. So for those listening, Zach, his granddad's got this really cool like special edition. Is it like a Vista? Select?
Yeah, it's like a Vista. Yeah, I think it's like Vista Select. Hang on, let me Google it while you keep regaling.
Those of you who know about these DVD collections or whatever, Vista Select has some really cool special edition, like 2-disc special editions of
Vista series. My bad.
Okay. They had one for Unbreakable, for The Sixth Sense, I think. Also for Seven, I think. These are really, really cool sets. Now you can go to like a secondhand store and like an Entertain Mart or a movie trading company, and you can find them pretty cheap. They're DVDs, so the quality's not the best, but the quality of the packaging is the coolest. And his granddad's got one for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. The actual digibook looks like Eddie Valiant's suitcase, and you open it up, and it's got signed pictures of Jessica Rabbit and Roger Rabbit. And dude, this was really wild. What kind of spurred me wanting it was he also left in 2 coupons that came with it.
Oh, cool.
One was for Chuck E. Cheese, and one was I think like $5 off, like a movie, like another DVD. And I was like, yo,
that's cool.
Like, are these still redeemable? Like, let's go.
Yeah.
No, they expired in like
20 years ago.
Yeah, like 2006, I think is what it said.
Oh,
yeah,
almost 20.
Yeah. I mean, I still took it home, but yeah. Gonna probably have to get my own copy.
Yeah.
I mean, I did just look on Amazon. It's only $28 right now.
I guess let's move from Roger Rabbit on DVD.
Yeah. And well, I told Ashley too, I was like, I just want it for the collection for it, like.
So cool.
I could stream it on 4K, or even buy a 4K version, but like the 4K version is just a snap case, Yeah,
it looks like trash, And
Now, if they would do a 4K like this, then yeah, I would have like 10 copies.
Yeah, of course.
What a way to open the show. If I'm being honest, I'm trying to stall. Mainly because I'm worried this episode is going to be really, really short.
Short? It might be short.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of if I have any sort of recommendations or anything. I know I have things I'm very excited about. I guess I can go through those. Things that I'm very excited about. So my paternity leave is coming up.
Uh-huh.
And so I'll have a little bit of free time with little Miss Maya. And I'm wondering what kind of movies we're going to watch together. And so I was like, well, I need to catch up on stuff I've missed, right? So like Beetlejuice. I got to see that, right?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I really want to see Saturday Night.
Mm-hmm.
The Jason Reitman film. I really want to see A Different Man with Sebastian Stan.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Both Kale and my dad have been telling me I have to see The Substance, and so I gotta see that. So yeah, things that I'm excited about. Also, James Acaster, who's one of my favorite stand-up comedians, just dropped a new stand-up special on Max, so that's pretty exciting. I just watched Anthony Jeselnik's new stand-up special this morning before work, and it was fine. It wasn't his best, but it was still solid. I'm a big fan of Jeselnik, but I don't know. It was just okay to me.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I don't care for Anthony Jeselnik.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Nah. I guess the only thing that I've been really excited for, and we were kind of talking about it at work, is the 4:30 movie, Kevin Smith's newest film.
Yeah.
I heard it's doing pretty good. I can't believe I missed it. I thought it wasn't coming out for like a while.
Me too.
And then I was like, oh, it fucking came out in September.
Yeah, it was a short window of like promotion and then the movie coming out, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it's because, his new the company, the new financier he's been using is Saban Films, so I'm sure, But I mean, his last 3 films have been knockouts. Jane Silent Bob reboot, Clerks 3, which I still haven't seen. Need to see.
I haven't seen Clerks 3. I really want to. I did not see. Now here we go. I did not care for the reboot. I didn't care for Jane Silent Bob reboot.
Was it because it was essentially Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, but updated?
No, I would have liked that. I think that it was too meta for me. I think if they had left out maybe half of it, I would have enjoyed it more. I feel like.
Well, I mean, the whole joke was that they just essentially made the same movie twice.
Right. So I guess in a sense the entire thing is meta, which I understand, but
yeah. Okay, I think that's enough hemming and hawing. Jeremy, I think we should do our job now.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. If you tuned in last week, thank you, by the way. Last week's episode did really, really well. Those movies were so adorable, dude.
I'm telling you, bro.
After I got back to work, after we recorded that episode, I told everyone, I was like, you guys have to watch Paddington and Paddington 2.
Yeah.
And everyone just like looked at me and they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm being dead serious. Go stream Paddington and Paddington 2. It's on Prime. Go watch them right now.
Yeah.
And what a way to follow up a very cutesy movie with a movie that I don't even know where to begin with. So if you did tune in last week, this week we were talking about David Lynch's film Wild at Heart. Now, this was a first watch for you and I, and it's been a while since we've done first impressions because I think we really need to set the tone for this. Jeremy, what were your first impressions of Wild at Heart?
I watched it. Oh man, it was a while ago now. Probably Wednesday or Thursday. So it's been about a week or so, and I did not like this movie. I didn't like it. I thought that I don't know. It was Lynchian, which of course, duh. But it was a different type of Lynch that we were getting. I feel like the tone was a little different. The strange atmosphere of a Lynch film usually contains heart, charm, some sort of redemption or redemptive quality, or some sort of, I don't know, some sort of air of charm, like I said. But this was devoid of all of that. So in short, I did not care for this one, which I was surprised by. But that kind of makes things interesting.
I'm in the same vein. After I finished the movie last night, I was like, okay, I can see why Jeremy didn't like it. And all day today, thinking about it, and I had lunch with Mom and Scott before they went back to Austin, and Mom asked about it, and discussing a lot of the elements of the film with her, I was just like, I don't think I liked it either. Which is kind of disappointing because, again, I love Lynch. We've discussed it numerous times on the show that we have become disciples of Lynch.
Of course.
But yeah, I don't know, man. And I don't even know like how to describe this movie. Like, yeah,
I would describe it as a
fever dream.
a demented fever dream love story. Because it is, when you boil it down, a love story.
Yeah.
I'll let you do the good luck. I'll let you do the synopsis, and then we'll get started.
Yeah. So everyone, bear with me. So synopsis: Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart follows two lovers, Sailor Ripley and Lula. They say her name, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't retain it.
That's okay.
Because Sailor Ripley was insane. Fortune, Lula Fortune, played by Nicolas Cage. Sailor and Lula, played by Laura Dern. These two lovers are just madly in love, head over heels for one another, but their Lula's mom is trying to keep them apart. We get two explanations as to why she'd want to keep them apart. The movie can't pick. We'll get to that later. After murdering a man in self-defense, Sailor's sent to prison for almost 2 years, because it's 22 months.
Mm-hmm.
He gets out, and he essentially runs off with Lula, and they decide, you know what? We're going to go to California. We're going to start a new life together, and we're going to be together and fuck anyone else. And essentially the movie is just told through their misadventures, really, trying to outwit Lula's mom, PI boyfriend, played by Harry Dean Stanton, Johnny. Dude, justice for Johnny, by the way.
Justice for Johnny.
I gotta say
Absolutely.
that. Also trying to outwit. They're also trying to outrun Lula's apparent side lover, a gangster, Santos, and eventually culminating in a very odd part of their story of them being in Big Tuna, Texas. Lynch has some fascination with our state. Ultimately ending in Sailor going to prison again for 6 years and coming out, and he's got a son. But then he's like, no, it's just better for me if I disappear. I'll bring nothing but bad things. And then he gets a vision from the Good Witch to say, don't give up on love. And he runs back to Lula, and that's Wild at Heart.
Yep. Essentially.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so where to begin with this, Jeremy?
Well, gosh, I don't know. Well, I do know, because let's go ahead and let's deal with some positives, because I don't want it all to be negative, because it isn't technically all negative.
No, there are. I would say for me, there are a good substantial highlights of the movie.
Absolutely. To me, there are two major highlights. Okay. Probably the most important ones. To me, that made me not lose my mind, and that is Laura Dern. I love Laura Dern. I think she is incredible. I think anything she is in, she is giving 100%. I love that she has partnered with Lynch on so many different occasions, and she just lets herself be a part of this world. She lets herself be strange and be weird,
Mm-hmm.
and then go be in Jurassic Park. You know, um,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was a few years before Jurassic Park.
so I love it. I love that she's willing to, because it wasn't just, she started out with Lynch in Blue Velvet, and then in this, and then she did Jurassic Park, and then she had this big old huge, A-list career, and then she left Lynch behind. But that's not true. She got this A-list career, and she kept going back to Lynch. So I
Mm-hmm.
I like that she retained that sort of artistry in herself, and that she continued to trust this strange artist who is David Lynch, and I love it.
Yeah.
Also, Diane Ladd. I mean, her mother and
Her.
wife,
Yeah.
who has played her mom on multiple occasions. And she's also great. I've seen her in a few things. It took me a while to remember. I was going through her stuff today because I go, man, it wasn't just this, that I'd seen her in, obviously. And so I was going through, and she was in Stephen King's adaptation of Kingdom Hospital.
Okay.
It was on ABC. It was a million years ago. And she had a big part in that. And that's primarily what I know her. Originally, but of course she was in Chinatown. She's a big deal.
Yeah.
And of course Harry Dean Stanton, anything he does, I'm in. Full stop. I love Harry Dean Stanton. So the performances, I tend to. They were great. I think my main criticism.
Okay.
Is probably just that it lacks quirk. Normally, in a Lynch project,
Mm-hmm.
very very seldomly is it this sort of, like, I don't know, what's the word? Pessimistic, I guess.
Okay.
Even though the entire film is a love story, so it's not. It's the opposite. It's optimistic, right? These are two lovers who are trying to stay together with, against all odds. Not
Mm-hmm.
to quote Phil Collins, but but this seemed not to have, like, it's lacking a log lady. It's lacking
Okay.
a diner with a really good piece of pie, or a damn good cup of coffee. It's lacking a Winkies. It's lacking, I don't know, like,
Which is interesting because a good chunk of the Twin Peaks cast shows up in this movie.
Yeah, it was during season 1, because they came out the same year, so I guess it was all happening around the same time that he was doing Twin Peaks and this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of crossover with cast. I mean, I texted you. The movie wasn't even over yet, and I'm like, when I saw that Miss Laura Palmer herself was in this movie, I'm like, dude, you're gonna lose your fucking mind.
Well, I lost my mind when Audrey showed up. I was like, ah!
Yeah,
It's Audrey. Yeah. So okay. I want to piggyback on that real quick. So I agree. Yeah, performances. Well, as we were talking about today at work, honestly, my highlights were Laura Dern and Nick Cage. Yes, Nick can sometimes be too much. He can do too much. I mean, look at the remake that he did of The Wicker Man.
the bees.
But But I feel like at this point, his earlier performances, I'm just like, I'm expecting him to do something weird and odd choice. And it was definitely a choice to pretty much impersonate Elvis the entire movie. Which I also, if I'm being honest, I felt like it added so much more though. Like if he just spoke in his normal voice, I'd be like, okay. But just hearing him do like, honey,
Yeah,
we gotta, and just, I'm like, okay, like I'm on board. But as I was texting you today, it was everything else that I was like, can't get on board with some of this stuff. But again, like you said, I don't want it to be purely negative. I didn't hate the movie at all. It just there weren't as many highlights as it was like compared to, I was just looking up a movie we did last season, I think. Yes. Lost Highway, 7 years later. And honestly, if I'm being honest, taking these two, I mean, Lost Highway is not a road movie necessarily, but
not necessarily.
But taking these movies with similar kind of concepts, Lost Highway is the superior film, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, because Lost Highway isn't one of my favorite Lynch projects.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it. I think it has that sort of mystery to it and that otherworldly surrealism. This didn't really have that, which I thought was... But it had the tone as if it did. I think that's probably, and normally I would like that, but for some reason this didn't click with me, it didn't connect with me like Lost Highway did.
Well, and how did you feel about what I said about it being like Lynch's approach to like a pseudo spiritual sequel to Twin Peaks with this in terms of tone?
Yeah. Well, the I guess the difference would be Twin Peaks, which is, I mean, listen, Twin Peaks is probably the greatest show ever made.
I agree.
Full stop. I think it is one of the most creative, one of the most ambitious, one of the greatest shows ever made. Now, the reason why is because it balances soap opera, drama, surrealism, horror, fantasy, mystery. It does all of that. This movie is it's romance, it's an erotic.
Oh yeah.
It is hypersexual. I guess we can talk about it in a minute, but it's like an erotic drama, romance, road trip movie with the tone of Twin Peaks that is missing surrealism, mystery, fantasy, or it's missing all of those.
Well, and can I be honest, and we'll get into it, kind of like I mentioned in the when I was talking about the synopsis, it's like this movie doesn't know what it wants to be, and again, that's not an indictment on Lynch at all, but it seems like exactly what you said, that it's all these things, but it can't decide on really where it wants to be, but before we move on with that, let's I was not expecting it to be like to have a sex scene every 10 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ. Like when the first one happens, I'm like, okay, Lynch at least throws in like a sex scene. And then like 4 or 5 scenes later it's happening again. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then it just keeps happening. I was like, well, I can see why audiences didn't really like this that much. It's also, I feel, the most violent of Lynch's films.
Yeah, it is very violent.
Which is saying something, considering, to use Lost Highway again, we saw Patricia Arquette get hacked to pieces.
That's true.
And we saw that guy's head get like severed on a glass table. But I felt like this movie was more violent.
It did feel more violent. I think it's because of its. I think because of its like. It's sort of a defiant tone of the film because the characters are very defiant. They are pushing back against their lives to go start anew, no matter what that means and what that looks like and how they're going to do it. They'll do anything to escape their lives, and so which is very defiant behavior. And so there's this air of defiance and this air of pessimism and I think that matters in terms of how we're viewing the violence and how we're viewing the gore and the blood and guts and all that, and also the sexual violence. I think that's for Willem Dafoe's character is concerned. Now. I mean, yes, we keep mentioning Lost Highway. Lost Highway is also more sexual than I think his other films are also. But I think Wild at Heart is a little bit more elevated in its sexuality. But yeah, it didn't seem necessarily out of place because these two are, again, these are representations of how much they love each other, obviously, right? But yeah, it's so strange, and it's so strange to see Laura Dern this way. And Laura Dern said that she number one broke her no nudity rule for the movie.
Yeah,
and two was very uncomfortable at first. Like, I don't know if I can pull this off by being such the opposite of myself, which is this sort of naive. I won't say dumb, but I'll say naive, sex obsessed, rebel, I guess. It's usually wanted to play more intelligent, intellectual, straight-laced characters, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so this is the exact opposite of that, obviously. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but
well, no, I see what you're saying, because again, 3 years later she's in Jurassic Park, and her character honestly is sort of the anchor of all the movie, to keep all these other characters grounded. But I was telling Ashley wasn't really watching, but I was telling Ashley, I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, Laura Dern's naked here. Oh, she's naked again. I was describing the scene in which she was getting turned on, listening to Nick Cage talk about,
oh yeah,
fooling around with that other girl. And Ashley was like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, I know this is coming from Laura Dern. But again, we're also kind of viewing this as the context of having seen Laura Dern in so many fantastic performances since this movie. More recently for me was when Ashley and I saw Little Women. She was amazing in Little Women.
I know that she was amazing. I'm sure. She's Laura Dern.
I think you should watch it. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Not for
our boy Timothy Shamalama Ding Dong is in it. He gets with Florence Pugh. It's not like that will ever happen again.
Now,
but anyway,
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
You need to probably amend myself a little bit, because Blue Velvet is also sort of hypersexual as well.
Well, and I was going to say, I mentioned that to Mom today that's spoiler alert, everyone, that's on the list, or your list, and she was like, "Oh, that one's also very sexual."
It is. Like, well, so now that I think about it, you're right. So I guess his early career minus Eraserhead and Elephant Man are sort of exploring this like suburban sexuality. I suppose. Anyway, so go ahead. I cut you off.
No. I was just agreeing with your point about that. It was really crazy to see Laura Dern like this. I should also, that sexual assault scene, man. It's so gross. When it ended, I almost wanted to text you, but it was like already like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, he's probably asleep.
Oh, well.
But I was like, I'm like, I felt uncomfortable, and this is saying something considering we did Irreversible, which is just honestly just as realistic, but I was like, this is gross. This is so gross.
Yeah.
I mean, both scenes are gross. I should mention that. Like, let me get that away. Both scenes are gross and awful. I think the reason why this one freaked me out so much is that the fact that, yes, Willem Dafoe's character, Bobby Peru, dumb fucking name, by the way, mentally manipulates her to get what he wants and then bails in a very cartoony way. Like, someday I will, honey, but right now I gotta get going.
Yeah.
Like, it's so gross. It's so gross. I had to pause the movie for a second and just be like, do I want to finish this? But of course, by that point, we've only got 20 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I better finish it anyway. Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. And I want to go ahead and say this now too. A lot of the things in this movie I wasn't expecting. Going into the movie, I was expecting a lot of Lynchisms that we've talked about. I was expecting surrealism. I was expecting, very strange things, like the whole fucking Crispin Glover's whole sequence.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's very Lynch. Like, I was expecting that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting all the violence. I wasn't expecting all the sex. And I was just like, are we sure this is a Lynch film? But then something would happen. I'm like, yeah, this is a Lynch film. Yeah.
Well, technically, it is, and then it isn't, because it's also an adaptation of a novel. So
yeah.
And by the way, there are like 4 of these books with Sailor and Lula.
Really?
Yeah, I think this is like the second one. It's not even the first.
That's crazy that he just jumped in and was like, you know what? I want to do a second.
It's not uncommon. I think, for instance, Gone Baby Gone. That's not the first book in the series. I think it's like the second or third. So it's not uncommon. It's probably they just pick the most interesting one and then give you some backstory from the first book and blah, blah, meld them together. But you want the more interesting story to tell from the books, is my guess. But I do want to talk very briefly. So Nick Cage.
Okay.
At first, I was on board. Okay. He kills that guy at the hotel, and then the way he points at Diane Ladd, I go.
Now I've seen that GIF before.
I go. This guy thinks he's in an F.W. Murnau movie, or this guy thinks that he's in an early Fritz Lang film. Like, I'm really digging this sort of German expressionist, over the top, over exaggerated acting. I kind of like it. It's going to be really interesting to watch. And then it kind of didn't get interesting to watch. I think, I don't know. Either he dropped that sort of facade because he wasn't quite doing that exact thing anymore. The Elvis thing was I mean, I was like, I guess it was strange. The Elvis thing was strange.
Yeah.
That is him singing, by the way, both songs.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure, we're using "Love Me Tenderly" as the closing song.
Yeah, we'll use both songs. So which you listening already know because it did open.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess I appreciated the singing because it was good. He's good at it.
Well, and again, and he was doing an Elvis impersonation and holding it. So, okay. So first of all, before I ask you this, yeah, I love that he finds an excuse to incorporate German expressionism
Mhm.
as frequently as he can, because as we know, he's a huge German expressionism, fan and expert.
Yeah.
Like I was watching an interview with him where he talked about how he incorporated the whole scene from Metropolis of the doctor, looking at his hand into Moonlight.
Moonstruck.
Moonstruck. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so my question is, when did he lose you?
Not long after, actually. Probably during the nightclub sequence. I was like, don't care for that.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm so glad we brought up the nightclub sequence because, dude, what is, as we know, Lynch has a lot of obsessions. Dude, I can't speak tonight. He has a lot of obsessions. One of them ties into the episode, which we're going to get to. But what's his obsession with interworking heavy metal into things?
I don't know. I mean, it was pretty cool. Like, I didn't mind the heavy metal bit of it necessarily. I was like, I kind of covered my eyes. I'm like, that strobe is a little too much.
Yeah. And I love the fact that Nick, Sailor, really, in context of the movie, Sailor just takes over this heavy metal show.
Yeah. And people didn't seem to mind, which I guess is surreal in a way. Yeah, I think I just didn't like. It was, I don't know. It was oversimplified. The other man, dancing with Lula, and it being a huge deal. Like, I obviously, like, realistically, this wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? Like, he meant no disrespect. He didn't know, blah, 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 right? But it's just over the top melodramatic. This whole movie is, I mean, the title of the episode should be melodrama. But this whole sequence is melodramatic in an annoying way that I just didn't care for. I didn't like how Lula was reacting to this man dancing with her. I didn't like how Sailor responded. I didn't like it. It ended up being very strange and very surreal with him just, singing Elvis in this heavy metal show.
You didn't really like him being like, sorry to do this in front of a crowd, friend.
Yeah, I didn't like it. And a lot of this, I wish I could articulate it better because a lot of this, I'm afraid to say, might be just like Congress's definition of pornography, which is I can't describe it or I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And I know I don't like that, but I can't describe it to you because I guess I don't have the words. I don't have the intelligence to properly tell you why I didn't like that. And
nah, you're
because
you're pretty smart, buddy.
Because, like, I don't know. Because things like that in this film happen quite often. Where, I guess in Twin Peaks, the melodrama is different. And I don't...
Well...
And there's a reason why I feel that way, and I can't think of it right now. Because...
Well, I think it's what you said just literally a second ago. No, not a second ago. a little while ago of Twin Peaks being very balanced with the melodrama and the comedy and the horror, as where this melodrama just seems to be cranked up to an 11.
Yeah.
And Lynch being like, this is the story. But yeah, man, I don't know why I was digging it. I mean, granted, yes,
Sure.
there were times with his Elvis accent. I was like, okay,
It's crazy.
but I was sold, man. I was sold the minute he goes, "I ever tell you the story of my snakeskin leather jacket?" Like I was like, I'm in. Let's go. It's a symbol of my individuality. Now, okay, this is a good transition. We need to talk about the obsession, especially with this film, of the Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
That I read, apparently Lynch really wanted to shoehorn into the movie, like change the ending of the movie so he could shoehorn in, or he changed the ending of the book for the movie so he could shoehorn in this Wizard of Oz, like really hammer it home.
Yeah.
I watched, and I told you I watched it because I own it, the Lynch Oz documentary, which, look, it's fine. David Lowery's part is the best, and it's at the very end. But they made a lot of points about how Lynch does have this sort of obsession with the Wizard of Oz. And I was telling Mom about it today. Mom was like, well, because that movie's, groundbreaking. I'm like, well, yeah, of course it is. It was the first movie that set the tone for Technicolor and, honestly, dream logic and time, someone said time travel one time, but I'm like, or no, not time travel, multiverse. It was Deadpool and Wolverine. But an obsession with it, I don't know. It's very strange, and again, it's so overt in this movie. We have Diane Ladd as the Wicked Witch of the West. After Bobby Peru assaults Lula, she taps her heels in her red shoes. And then, of course, again, Cheryl Lee herself as Glinda the Good Witch coming down in a bubble, which is, there's the title, She came down in a bubble, Doug.
Yeah.
But, man, why?
Well, probably during this section of the conversation, we'll figure out a why. I did want to mention that because the Wizard of Oz stuff, I would have absolutely loved. I would have loved all of it. I would have loved the crystal ball stuff. I would have loved the Diane Ladd, continuously popping up as the antagonist, as the Wicked Witch of the West, because she is the personification of this evil force that's out to get you. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Ingrained in American culture and in the world's culture, and it will be forever. Okay, I would have loved the clicking of the heels, and I would have loved Cheryl Lee as Glinda. I would have loved all of it if the characters would have quit mentioning it. If they wouldn't, if they never talked about the Wizard of Oz, I would have loved it.
Like if it wasn't a thing
right.
that existed.
Right. It was part of it was part of the story. I mean, it was, the characters were discussing the Wizard of Oz. They were talking about the idea of the Wizard of Oz and how escaping their troubled lives to this magical land, and they're comparing their journey to the Wizard of Oz diegetically to themselves. And so that ruined it. That ruined all of the Wizard of Oz imagery and motifs for me, because it's it's too obvious. Now it's like, okay, well now it's like a hat on a hat. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're, you know, the characters are aware of it. So I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. Because again, I would have loved it if they didn't talk about
Yeah, I didn't mind that.
it.
You know, I didn't mind that in this reality the Wizard of Oz exists,
Cool.
and you know,
Right.
but I just want to know why. And of course I want to ask Lynch, why did it have to be specifically the Wizard of Oz? And just why, you know?
Well,
Now that's not to say, because you were right, I did absolutely lose my shit at Cheryl Lee as Glinda the Good Witch. See, and hang on, let me finish this thought and let me get to that one. But I don't know. I don't know why. And then my thought that just popped in my head is, so they can say Wizard of Oz, but they can't cast Cheryl. They can't call Cheryl Lee Glinda the Good Witch. They just have to call her the Good Witch.
I think so.
Like, anyway, but
Well, I think that perhaps it is as simple as these characters see Oz. You know what? Hold on. Let's talk through it. Because
okay,
perhaps what we're seeing, like with the crystal ball and with the manifestation of, what's her name, Marlene? What is her
Marietta.
Mary, I think. We're seeing her manifestation as the Wicked Witch, right? And then we're clicking our heels together, and we're you know, doing all this. I think these things, especially like with the crystal ball, and with I assume that's also supposed to be Diana, her hand. I think these are sort of representations of how they're feeling in the moment. Because
Okay.
maybe I'm cracking this as we're talking about it, because maybe them discussing it does have significance, and it isn't a hat on a hat. Perhaps them discussing it verifies that when we are seeing the Wizard of Oz imagery, it's not to be taken literally, it's to be taken metaphorically. This is how they're feeling. This is like, I'm feeling like I'm in the Wizard of Oz. I'm feeling like I'm escaping my my reality, and I'm trying to go to someplace better, but this someplace better isn't quite what I'm needing, or what that it's all promised to be, and so, which is the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And with the exception of the clicking the heels together, which happens, you know, it's not a cutaway thing. She's literally doing it in the room. I think that that's what we're supposed to be gathering from those scenes.
Okay.
Is there moments of feeling, and not to be taken literally, I think. Might be what it is.
Well, and that makes sense.
Does it?
Considering, and again, I'm going to use Cheryl Lee. We don't see her until Nick Cage is knocked out by, I guess, the Sharks and the Jets. Okay. 1 second, let me finish that thought. I'll finish that thought on Cheryl Lee. If there's one thing I overtly didn't like, it's that these guys just come out of nowhere and they target Sailor, and he hadn't done anything. He's just walking there.
Yeah.
Granted,
it seemed to be for no reason.
Granted, yes, what he says to them, which I'm not going to repeat, was deserving of an ass kicking.
What are you talking about? It's the title of our episode.
But anyway, but no, that makes sense, that it's a feeling, because again, he's unconscious when he sees her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's having this conversation with her in his head. Granted, his example is extreme, because then he tells Lula, I had a conversation with the Good Witch, or had a talk with the Good Witch. So for him, it was real.
And like it makes perfect sense. And even I would even say I don't mean. I don't mean like in certain instances that it can't be taken literally, because yes, it was a sort of it was a delusion or something, right? Because
right.
he himself, Sailor, is aware that he is trying to emulate the Wizard of Oz by escaping his life himself. I mean, in earlier scenes. So of course he would manifest Glinda to come down and tell him, to not give up on this love, because you can't run away from it. And
Yeah.
I'm more, I was more saying like the Wicked Witch stuff, the Crystal Ball, like those, because they're complete cutaways.
Mm-hmm.
They're their own separate shots, and so those I think are more to manifest feeling and metaphor, and like they feel like they're being watched, or they feel like they're being chased, and they feel like it's this constant sense of being pursued, which they are.
Yeah.
I think the most outrageous the movie gets, and the most in an obnoxious way,
Okay.
would be anything to do with Harry Dean Stanton. I listen. Did I love seeing Mrs. Palmer again? Yes.
Oh my god. I didn't realize that was her until they kill him.
Yeah.
I was like, I know that face. And then I was like, oh.
So, okay. So it's Grace Zabriskie and Isabella Rossellini. So those characters that are involved with that gentleman, is it Reggie, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right. So them, number one, it's 100% probably my fault. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it, and I still kind of don't get their significance within the story. I may have just missed it. I might have been changing a diaper while they were explaining it. I don't know. But
they're Mr. Reindeer's like hitmen.
Okay. I thought it was a little too. It was too much. I didn't.
It was very too much.
I didn't appreciate it. I didn't feel like it. It wasn't
added anything.
No, it wasn't a cool kind of strange. It was just strange, and it confused me. And so so I definitely didn't get it. And like I said, it confused me. So I kind of just played it off, and it ended up not really mattering anyway. But yeah, I thought that was the most, to me, save for the thugs at the end of the movie, it was like the most ridiculous and the most unnecessary, I felt.
Yeah, like I get that Lynch was trying to be like, well, here's what happened to Harry Dean Stanton. Sure. But dude, once I realized who that was, I was like, I don't like this at all. I'm very uncomfortable right now, especially the fact that she's turned on by the fact they're gonna kill Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't like that, Sam. I am.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, and yeah, like I said, I think it was unnecessary. Although, who am I to say? But I didn't like it.
Now
it's okay.
Now I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I said it in our tease last week that you've always told me that there's two types of Lynch. There's normal Lynch. He's going to incorporate surrealism and strange things, and then there's adaptation Lynch, where he tends to take the material a little bit more seriously, is a little bit more respectful, considering it's not his work. But this feels like it's Lynch, through and through.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of both. I think it's because
I was gonna say, do you think it's because him and
so I don't know. It feels like okay,
well, is it because him and Barry Gifford are like
friends.
Well,
yeah, but this might be the first time they worked. I mean, it is the first time they worked together. So it's not like they're. I would feel like Lost Highway is the way it is because they're friends. This is because I don't know. It just maybe he felt like his style and his tone lends itself to this story. Maybe it sort of feels like what Oliver Stone would have used for Natural Born Killers. That's what this feels like. This feels like
holy shit! I can't believe you just made that comparison.
Mickey and Mallory are a much more sadistic and violent Sailor and Lula. That's how I feel.
Well, that tracks.
Well, obviously, Wild at Heart came first, so that's why I said that Oliver Stone may have grabbed a hold of this and been like, aha, or I guess it would have been Tarantino, but who cares? So, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question because I thought about that today. Because you're right, it is an adaptation. I have not read or listened to the book, so I don't know. I don't even know how close it is, if it's close at all. I don't know if he changed a little bit, if he changed everything, if he kept these the core plot and changed everything else. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I have
the world may never know.
Well, I have a hard time believing. Obviously, this stuff in the written form wouldn't translate, so he must have changed quite a bit. And of course, you had mentioned that he changed a lot just to add the Wizard of Oz motifs. So
yeah, I read that he didn't like the ending in the book, and he wanted to give it a happy ending. I guess if you want to call the ending of this movie happy. I mean, Sailor and Lula end up together.
Yeah.
But
which did happen.
Yeah. But he's got that awful broken nose now.
Yeah, it was distracting. The prosthetic nose was distracting.
Well, and I love the fact that these guys beat his ass and the only damage we see is just a broken nose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know either. And if I'm being honest, dude, I don't know if I want to read the book. Especially after
zero interest.
Especially after seeing that, yeah, he's got he wrote a seventh one in 2007 or something like that. I don't.
Hey, there's a lot more of these than I thought.
Well, and apparently I was just looking up during the episode. Recently, I think is early as 2019 or something. There's an expanded edition called just Sailor and Lula, and I'm just I don't want to know. That's for a stronger man than me.
I don't have any desire to visit these characters in the written form. I'm sure it's fine, and I'm sure it's really interesting. It's got to be interesting for them to be so many of them.
Yeah,
someone's given him publishing, so it's got to be. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's not for me. This movie's not really for me, although talking about it has made me feel better about the Wizard of Oz stuff. Other than that, it's not really my bag. I wish they had, which, to be fair, they kind of did. They kind of did stick with this sort of episodic road trip narrative, which I like.
Yeah.
It's not quite as episodic as I'd like it to be. their stops aren't, I don't know, they're not as integral to the plot as you would like. For instance, I mean, when Sherilyn Fenn is um, Audrey Horne, when she's in that car accident, um, it was cool to see her. I was like, oh hey, it's Audrey Horne, but I don't know how they would have played when people saw it, because when people saw this movie, there's no way they'd seen Twin Peaks first. Maybe.
Yeah, that's
So I don't know. I don't know. All I know is this movie was not for me. But as I told you today, I think I texted to you that it makes me feel good, because it makes me feel like I'm not just liking them blindly. I don't love Mulholland Drive just because Lynch's name is on it. I don't love Eraserhead for that reason. I truly do love, Mulholland Drive, Eraserhead, Twin Peaks, Inland Empire, because I don't like this. So I know I like this.
Yeah, I agree, man. I feel like, as fans, people tend to blindly be like, well, whatever this person's doing or that person's doing, I'll like it. Like, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Which I'm like that with a few things. But yeah, same. I was like, I want, and I'm sure just like you, I wanted to like this, but I was just I don't think I like this very much. Which is saying something, because I didn't really enjoy Eraserhead either. But yeah, man. Hopefully we didn't just lose a listener with Stormy.
Sorry, Stormy.
She's like, no, this is my favorite movie.
And you know what? It might be a lot of people's favorite David Lynch movie. I don't know.
I did read that in recent years it has been re-examined, and people are like, I didn't see the term masterpiece, but all I read was it's been positively reevaluated.
Interesting, which is fine. I appreciate that, and I like that people are willing to go back to, a piece of art or a piece of media that they at first didn't like, and they decide to give it another try. I like that. Who knows? I may do that myself with this.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. I am in this section of my life where I don't like this movie. That's okay. That's okay. I feel like I've been very fair. And I didn't even talk about Willem Dafoe's teeth at all. So I mean, I think I'm doing really well.
His baby teeth.
Honestly, cool choice. I did like that choice. They give me. I like it. I don't know. That's one thing I do.
Dude, I feel like I watched an interview with him talking about that, and he was like, I don't remember what he said, but I feel like he didn't have, not necessarily nothing nice to say, but I feel like he said something like he didn't really like the fake teeth. But it gave him kind of a, like, not really an overbite, but it made his lips kind of fatter.
Yeah.
Like under the gums. Yeah. Yeah, dude, fuck Bobby Peru. I'm glad he blew his own head off.
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of gross and unexpected, but yeah.
Well, with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yes, I am.
Well, I'm glad for, on a rare occasion, we both agreed on a movie.
You're right. And well, we agreed on disliking one, which is unique for us. Normally it's, not like
Yeah, usually it's, I didn't like the movie, but you loved the movie, or I really liked the movie and you hated the movie.
Right. If there is a disagreement of that kind, it would be that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad, it feels good to agree on things once in a while.
I agree. Uh, yeah, I think if a negative film experience is to be had, it's nice to be shared. So,
Yeah. Well, with that being said, buddy, so how are we going to follow up this? And hopefully we will agree that it's a better movie.
yeah, probably. Because I thought about it the other day, and I'm gonna use my mystery one.
Oh, okay.
And I know you're gonna think it's a better movie, and so that's exciting. There's nothing I love more than I really like it. I like where you create a story, a completely fictionalized story about real people. I love it. I think it is so interesting, and that you can reinterpret history in a unique, fictionalized way that is palatable and that is respectful and interesting and entertaining. And I think Milos Forman did that perfectly. So next week we are going to be discussing Amadeus. So,
oh, I'm so happy. Oh, I was literally talking about this movie not that long ago. I do not know who I was talking about it with. I cannot remember. Oh my god, dude, I'm so happy. We're doing the extended cut, right?
of course, it's the only one. I think. I don't think you can get the theatrical cut anymore. I don't think it's available anymore.
Good. The director's cut is superior. Yes. Oh my god. I don't know. I feel like this movie lives deep within the lore of this show, because my wife hates it.
She does.
Refused to finish the movie. And she's over there playing her game, and as soon as I said she hates this movie, she turned and looked at me. She hates the movie because of the language they used.
Of course.
I know you know, but I'm telling Zach.
Oh yeah.
Because she didn't like the fact that they used stupid because, to quote her, they wouldn't have talked like that. And I'm like, but it's not a big deal. And she refused to finish watching the movie. And I was very happy that I was getting to expose her to this movie, because I fell in love with this movie, and she was liking it until that scene when his soon-to-be wife says, well, that's just stupid. She was like, nah, turn it off, we're done.
Yeah, I like that they use modern language. I like that they're not relying on historically accurate sense or language, right? I like that, because none of it's true anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's really it's an adaptation of a play, which I love. And yeah, I remember seeing the movie for the first time and completely shocked by how entertaining it was, and how good it was, and how not boring it was. I thought for sure I was going to be bored, and I wasn't.
Yeah, man. Well, and again, it's a testament to the casting. Tom Hulce is fantastic as Mozart. For those of you who have done a deep dive in the channel, like the YouTube channel for the show, there's a video called "A Conversation with a 5-Year-Old" that we did with our friend Alex's daughter Alba, and we discussed Hunchback of Notre Dame, which also has Tom Hulce.
That's right.
Tom Hulce is fantastic. I think he really, I think he's fantastic. He is the Steen Stealer, but of course we have F. Murray Abraham, who's so good.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, buddy. I'm so excited. Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, everyone, we really did. We hoped you enjoyed this episode on Wild at Heart, and we will see you next week for Amadeus.